In this analysis, I'm focusing on two really important aspects of the golf swing: synchronization and sequencing. And as we take a look at Min Woo Lee's golf swing, I think it's really interesting to see how sequencing early on in the golf swing can and does predetermine the entire motion. Just to start off with, I'm just going to highlight Min Woo Lee's centre of gravity, because I think posturally his setup position is probably as good as you're going to see out on tour. You see how this vertical blue line descends straight down through the middle of his right tricep muscle, just touches and skirts the outer part of the right knee, and then extends down into the middle of the foot. So that real sort of tripod foot connection with the ground, you can really see here. Fantastic, so well poised and ready to make a really great motion. If we then just combine that with Min Woo's starting shaft plane at address, it's such a crucial reference point throughout the golf swing. What you'll see here is the first 5 to 6 inches of Min Woo Lee's motion. You'll see how the club head clearly works outside his ball to target line, and you'll see how the hands just rise ever so slightly up and off the red line. And in addition to that, you'll see how the lead arm begins to just slightly separate from the torso and the rib cage. And what that does is it places the club head a little bit outside the line of the hands at the P2 position. So when the club shaft is parallel to the ground for the first time, you see here how Min Woo Lee's club head is evidently outside the line of his hands in this checkpoint position. And that really does trigger a chain reaction in which we see the club trying to achieve a balanced and planed halfway back position. So if we just pause here and look at Min Woo Lee's sequencing and overall synchronization, you can see how if we just circle the hands in this position, the hands are slightly forward of the sternum line. So biomechanically, you haven't quite got a fully connected halfway back position. And as a result of that, you'll now see how there's evidence of the club wanting to just work slightly behind and laid off with minimal loading of the wrist joints to actually set the club at the top of backswing. Fantastic connection through both arms. So you can see certainly through lead arm positioning here, club face positioning, very well connected. You can also see how this trail elbow is nicely connected to the torso, and certainly the humeral head here and the right scapula, trail scapula, really is connected to the rib cage, which is what helps significantly with this transitional move here, this downward squatting move. So again, you can see the behavior of Min Woo Lee's right knee just tries to sort of jut forward. That's a reaction to the trail hip being slightly forward of its position. So you can see early on there in the transition, we see both glutes beginning to fire, and that just sometimes creates a catch-up move where Min Woo Lee's forced to chase quite hard with the club in the hand to actually square the face. You'll see through the hitting areas, the club appears through the exit plane just below that lead shoulder. You can see here the club is not quite fully square to the plane. There's evidence of hand and wrist overactivity, just trying to match up and square up the face with the way in which the pelvis and the rib cage are working hard there through that release phase of the move. Very, very consistent how Min Woo Lee moves the club, You know, you can certainly see how that lead arm just wants to separate at the beginning of the movement, affecting the balance of the club. But really just a great example here as to how the first movement away from the golf ball, where the hands are just rising off that starting shaft plane and the club head getting a little bit outside the line of the hands, just causing the hands to then work up the rib cage rather than across to the sternum with lead arm parallel, and then therefore at the top of the backswing the club shaft continuing on that line, getting slightly laid off behind. Min Woo Lee is a great athlete. You know, he finds impact really well. He shallows the hand path. You can see there the lead arm works down, compressing onto the rib cage to really get the hand path more in line with the sternum. So the club shaft now in this position, we just put a different coloured line here, you can see very much matching up with the original starting shaft plane in his address position. And then of course he's now able to just turn and compress. Some really exciting things there, but just purely from a synchronization and sequencing perspective, interesting to see how the start of the movement really does dictate the overall chain reaction.